Borthakur IAS Academy প্রস্তুতি আৰু অধ্যয়নৰ নিৰ্ভৰযোগ্য ঠিকনা Borthakur IAS Academy.
Hello everyone, this is Funny. Welcome to Borthakur IAS Academy. Today is 20th September 2021. This is our daily Hindu analysis class. So let's begin with the first article without any further delay. The first article for today is in regards to international relations, particularly India's investment in Afghanistan. Now it seems that Prime Minister along with External Affairs Minister are considering the situation in Afghanistan, and after due consideration they are going to take a decision as to whether they'll continue, meaning whether India will continue to invest further in Afghanistan infrastructure projects. See, one of the biggest things that happened post takeover of Kabul by Taliban was that subsequently after a week or so, the spokesperson of Taliban came out and said that they are open with the idea of India continuing its investments in the sense international aid, that is India's infrastructure aid, where we build hospitals, schools, road, transmission line and power plants for people of Afghanistan. Right, they said that they are open with it as long as India doesn't use Afghanistan to against any other country, insert Pakistan there. So it seems that we are considering whether we'll continue investments in Pakistan, particularly in the areas of infrastructure or not. Right, they are considering the current situation in Afghanistan. So this exactly comes after our Prime Minister's speech in SCO, where he was very critical of the Taliban government, the new government that was formed, where they have promised inclusive government, but at the end of the day it was not inclusive and it was predominantly dominated by the Pashtun community, with just one Tajik and one Uzbek in the entire government announced by Taliban. Right, we were very critical about the women's right, the women's situation in Afghanistan, and also many other things. Essentially we said, or at least the Prime Minister said, that the Taliban hadn't kept their promise of an inclusive government, and that is forcing India's decision making process too. So to give you a little bit of idea as to what India was involved in Afghanistan in terms of aid, India built roads, right? We built dams, electricity transmission lines, we built substations, we built hospitals, we built schools, we provided schools with enough furniture, whatever required to run a school. We supplied those hospitals with whatever it was necessary to run those hospitals. And at the end of it, India's development assistance has been estimated to be worth well over $3 billion. Remember, they started post 2001 and continued till recently, and the idea was many more projects were in the pipeline, but the hope was that the Taliban, the democratically elected government would stand against Taliban. But we know what happened in August, and subsequently Ashraf Ghani, the Afghan president, ran from Afghanistan, leaving behind Kabul to be taken over completely by Taliban, thus concluding their offensive that they began way back in 2014 or 2015 or so. So coming back to the infrastructure aspect of it, in short, this is what we have invested. Right, one of the biggest areas that we invested in was the road that connected heartland of Afghanistan with Gwadar port. Right, we were very much invested in that because since we didn't have access to Afghanistan from Pakistan, we had to develop alternate routes via Iran so that trade and commerce can sustain between both of our countries. Now let us look into few important infrastructure projects that India over the last few decades, or at least the last 2 decades, carried out in Afghanistan. Right, we signed an agreement with Afghanistan in the year 2011. What was that agreement? India-Afghanistan Strategic Partnership Agreement, where we promised that Indian government will provide assistance to rebuild Afghanistan infrastructure and institutions. One of the significant achievements of this policy is the success of it. If you don't know, India has similar agreements with many other regional countries around the world, and not only the regional countries but various other countries in the world. But the biggest hurdle is effectively implementing those projects or completing those projects. Because of various internal political issues in those respective countries, India found little success in terms of completing or keeping up its promises. See, we have our own fair share of issues, but when we say that we are going to commit to build a project, build a road, build an institution, or build an hospital in a country, let us say take Africa, or at least let us say Sri Lanka, due to a lot of internal politics, these projects do not tend to get completed in time, or in worst case scenarios, these projects wouldn't even begin or start to begin with. In that regard, Afghanistan is a success story for Indian foreign policy, in the sense that we were able to successfully complete many projects, though we took many losses in that. For example, in the case of the Zaranj-Delram highway, close to 11 Indians lost their life. 4 or 5 engineers were killed, a few people were killed by the terrorists, the rest were killed in accidents, various accidents. Despite that huge human cost, we continued and we completed that highway. So one of the biggest high visibility projects that we completed successfully was the Salma Dam, which was renamed as the India-Afghanistan Friendship Dam, which was completed in 2016. Right, the dam generates 42 megawatts of electricity through hydropower and irrigates close to a large swaths of Afghan territory. This is the biggest and the most visible project that India contributed and completed successfully. We also heard in the last few months where some proxies of Pakistan were being encouraged to damage the dam, but nonetheless Taliban came out and said that no, that dam is critically important for us. We are not going to allow anybody to damage it or tinker it with. So the second, as I said, is the highway that we built. That highway is a critical component in India's policy in gaining access to Afghanistan. That highway connects Iran with Afghanistan in Gwadar, right? Chabahar. Gwadar is in Pakistan, my mistake. Chabahar port. Please do correct it. Now the project was a 280-kilometer highway that was built by Border Road Organization, which was in Zaranji, which is located very close to Afghan border with Iran. That would essentially continue till Chabahar port, through which we would supply not only our trade but also humanitarian aid. During COVID-19, India supplied huge quantities of food grain to Afghanistan through Chabahar port via this highway. Not only that, this directly connected to a ring road that would provide India access to Herat, Mazar-e Sharif, Kabul, Ghazni and Kandahar regions. This was the ring road that connected this ring road, and that would give India direct access to the Chabahar port, which was successful because our trade increased significantly despite hindrances from Pakistan. Remember, if Pakistan was willing to give access to Afghanistan, the trade route would have been very simpler and easier, but given the current scenario between India and Pakistan, this was the only access that we had apart from an air corridor that we created with Afghanistan. But mind you, air corridors tend to be very costly, and the amount and the things that you could transport through air corridors is limited. When you have a road and a sea link, things can happen very quickly. right? This provided us with an alternative route to Afghanistan, and this was a success. This was the second successful project that India funded and completed. And the third most significant and the most symbolic one of all is the parliament building. We built their parliament in Kabul, and we built it at a cost of $90 million, and it was opened in 2015. Mind you, one section or at least one area of the parliament that India aided and built or at least one area in the parliament was named after Vajpayee. Yeah. So this was the third and most symbolic and significant project that we completed. We built many other projects, right? Small similar projects. According to our external affairs ministry, we built around 400 projects, close to 400 or 450 projects in Afghanistan. Most of it are infrastructure, in the sense that we built schools, we provided solar power to villages, we built hospitals, we supplied those hospitals with all the things that were necessary to run those hospitals. We supplied schools with all the necessary items like benches, we support whatever it is needed to, books in most of the cases, and any other thing that was required to run a school in Afghanistan. Now these are the infrastructure projects that we took up in Afghanistan over the last 2 decades, and it was estimated that the total cost of our infrastructure aid or Indian assistance in Afghanistan to rebuild Afghanistan amounted to more than 3 billion. Now all this is under threat in the hands of Taliban. But again, let us see what the government decides, whether to carry out future Indian assistance in Afghanistan or not. As far as what the projects are, the Salma Dam, the Dalram Highway, the Parliament building are the most significant and symbolic projects that India carried out in Afghanistan. Moving on to the next article, R&D labs transform livelihoods in Odisha's poorest district. So in a bit of news that would reinforce the idea that if institutions, right, if you have government institutions, both private, not only government institutions, if you have institutions both public and private, when they all come together, pool up their resources, work together, and use their capacity to uplift an entire district or a village or a town, the potential of that endeavor is limitless, right? You have these R&D labs, institutions coming together, pooling their resources, and they were trying to uplift a village in Odisha, particularly the poorest district in Odisha. And this is the success story of such endeavors taken up by Indian institutions. See, you have a consortium of 12 national research and development laboratories that joined hands, which is a rare effort, to be very honest with you. We don't see that much of that happening in our country for whatever reason, which is very sad. And they tried to transform livelihoods at this village in this area called Nabarangpur in Odisha. See, the interesting thing about Nabarangpur is they had the lowest per capita income of just 14,700 in Odisha. This was according to 2004 to 2005 prices. Despite having capable adult population who can work and earn wages, only 50% of its working population did not have any work, despite them being very capable to work. Now, come to 2020 or 2021, Nabarangpur now has 5,000 farmers, various artisans and women self-help groups, and these people are involved in livelihood generation with 12 government departments and 15 entrepreneurs. Now what are they doing? As far as the farmers are concerned, they are planting high yielding and rich variety of turmeric named CIM Pitambar, and they are also cultivating NBRI's Keshari variety of turmeric, and these varieties have been introduced in Nabarangpur, and as a result of it, the yields that these farmers are able to get out of their cultivation or their crops has gone up significantly, improving their livelihood. Right, government and the other agencies, see, the idea is you have these many institutions coming together, pulling up their resources, putting their minds together and trying to solve problems at local level. See, in this area of Nabarangpur, they found a few issues. They had farmers, but they couldn't grow crops that were giving them more profits or higher yields. You had institutions, agricultural institutions come in, they did the studies, they came up with the crop pattern that these farmers need to follow to improve their yields and make their cultivation or their crops a success, and look at the result of it. See, this is how problems are to be solved. You have institutions, the institutions need to come together, they should work together, there should be a lot of cohesion and interoperability between various departments and institutions in India. And when they do that, you don't come out with one solution fits all kinds of solutions. You look into areas, you find what kinds of solutions are needed for those areas. On a geography based solutions will come out of it, and this is the best case scenario for such kinds of initiatives. Right, these 12 R&D labs, they joined hands. Again, as I said, this is a rare effort, and now look at the outcome of it. This is what India needs to ensure our agriculture sector, our rural areas are transformed, but they don't shed their identities. Because of lack of livelihood, lack of work, many people are being forced into migration or forced into work in sectors that they are not accustomed to, creating a lot of issues. Right, you have unorganized sector, but you don't have enough jobs to provide. Now that is what I wanted to highlight through this article. Now let us move on to the next one. Today, Hindi gains due to demographic shift. So when we talk about language in our country, it is a bit of an touch and go subject, right? We had states that were divided on the basis of language. The language issue always comes to the surface whenever we are talking about anything in terms of cultural identity, and language has always been a little bit of a controversial subject in our country, particularly in the case of north, south, northeast kind of an scenario. You have Hindi that is being used as official language by the union government, and you have in southern states languages that are very specific to the state. You have Andhra Pradesh with Telugu, you have Kerala with Malayalam, you have Karnataka with Kannada, you have Tamil Nadu with Tamil. Right, in South India alone there are many languages that are spoken, and no two states kind of speak the same language, except for the case of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, which were used to be a single state, which were reorganized into two states of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. So as I said, the language has always been a contentious issue in our country, and the frictions between states itself have always flared up when the concept or the idea of language came up. That is where we saw a lot of issues that took place in the last few years, where states have been seeing the union government trying to impose Hindi as their official language. A bit of side note, India doesn't have an official language, but it has an language, that is Hindi, that is used by the government of India. Right, it doesn't have a national language, but it has an official language, and that happens to be Hindi. Now, according to latest estimates, there are around 121 languages that are spoken by at least 10,000 people, and the number of languages that are spoken by less than 10,000 people crosses hundreds. There are 100 numbers of languages that are spoken regionally and locally, and tribal areas too. Now the problem is, right, you have the issue of a common language, where you have many of the initiatives that are taken under the wings of union ministry tend to be done in Hindi, and when they get transported or transpired into states or transferred into states, the language barrier becomes a bit of a hindrance. Recently, there have been certain changes that were taken up by Union Ministry to ease up that problem, where we announced that we are going to, or the government announced that they are going to introduce 5 languages in university level education. And not only that, many of the central level exams are being conducted in multiple languages, right? For example, NEET, earlier it was only 2 languages, one was Hindi and one was in English. Now look at it, there are 13 languages in which a NEET takes place according to the state or the region where the exam is being conducted. Now let us look into why Hindi speaking states make up. Hindi has the highest percentage of people speaking that language. Uh, Now, if you look at it over the last 40 years, the percentage of population that spoke Hindi, when you count it in the year 1971, it was 36.99%. But when the same was measured in the year 2011, it rose to 43.63%. Why was it so? The major contributor to the growth of the people or the number of people who spoke in Hindi was the demographic changes. You have 10 states with the highest share of Hindi speakers, where we saw the population grow from 41.9% in 1971 to 46.5% by 2011 census. Right? As I said, the NEET offers 13 different languages, while as engineering colleges have also started offering courses in 5 Indian languages this year. Now, the idea that Hindi is being made into a one-all language is it's little bit complicated than what we can discuss at this point of time. But nonetheless, there are both societal pressure when you consider languages also. For example, English, there is a lot of societal pressure, because being able to speak in English is seen as a social status. uh, the pressure to speak English starts from within our own family, where we see parents pushing their children into English so that they are considered educated for whatever reason. English has become that language that kinds of showcases one's social stature. It has become a language of aspiration, where everybody wants to learn English, whereas when you consider regional languages, you might not find that kind of aspiration. Hope you understand what I'm trying to say. You have a regional language, many people don't tend to aspire to learn a regional language, but they are very much comfortable and okay with learning English, as that would further their career or that would further their social stature. That is the kind of social pressure that English imposes on our country, on our people. That is also a similar case. As I said, the population or the percentage of population that spoke Hindi has gone up significantly, and the factors are simply demographical and also migration. Right? You have Hindi speaking people migrating from one state to non-Hindi speaking people, Hindi speaking state, and they make their new state as their home, and that further develops or increases the percentage of Hindi speaking people in that state. But nonetheless, currently with the current data we have, Hindi speaking states make up 46% of the population, and the number of people that speak Hindi has significantly gone up from 36% to 43% over the last few decades, and the number seems to be increasing. But mind you, on parallel to that, or in parallel to that, we are also seeing a renaissance of regional languages being promoted by their respective state governments, and also being complemented by various programs carried out by union government. That is where you get that exams being offered in multiple different languages. Not only that, engineering colleges have also started offering Indian languages this year. But despite all these efforts, the language um, the language dynamics in India are skewed in favoring towards English and Hindi, and There are more regional languages that are to be promoted, and again that is another time for discussion for another time. But as far as this article is concerned, the percentage of Hindi speakers had grown significantly when compared to 1970s. Moving on to the next article, anti-tank missile completes all trials. So this article talks about the Nag missile. It is a fire and forget missile, and the speciality of this missile is it is anti-tank guided missile. Who developed it? DRDO developed it. The specialty of this missile is its ability to take out armored tanks, and the second best speciality of this missile is fire and forget mode, meaning all the soldier or the infantry soldier or the helicopter or whatever the platform that it is launched from, all it has to do is select its target and fire. The missile will guide itself to the target and it will take out that target. It works both in day and night conditions, and it has a minimum range of 500 meters and a maximum range of 4 kilometers. Whatever the weather may be, whatever the time of day may be, however the cold it is, however hot it is, this missile will find its target. That is the speciality of this missile. Now, as I said, now can be launched from land and air based platforms, and this article talks about a version that is being tested on helicopter platforms. Mind you, the land version is currently available and it is being integrated, right? And it is also being integrated through the Nag missile carrier Namika. Now that is one aspect of it. Now this missile has been developed by Integrated Guided Missile Development Program. What is Integrated Guided Missile Development Program? This was a program that was envisaged by Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. The idea through this IGMDP program, that is Integrated Guided Missile Development Program, was to enhance India's capabilities. When Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam was envisaging this program, he was trying to enable India so that it can have self-sufficiency in the fields of missile technology. Now we successfully achieved the goals of this program thanks to the efforts of Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam and numerous other scientists who worked with him, along with him, day and night, so that India can have missile capabilities or missile technologies. And now to give you a little bit of history, it was approved by Government of India in 1983 and it was successfully completed in 2012 of March of 2012. So what are the outcomes of the integrated guided missile development program? 5 missiles were the output of this program. Remember the shortcut acronym for the missiles that came out of the integrated guided missile development program is PATNA. P for Prithvi, A for Agni, T for Trishul, N for Nag, and A for Akash. To remember them, just remember the city name Patna. You'll get that acronym, that is P for Prithvi, A for Agni, T for Trishul, N for Nag, and A for Akash. Prithvi, you know, a short range surface to surface ballistic missile that has been inducted into Indian Armed Forces. Agni, India's ICMBs, you have Agni 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and recently we launched Agni Prime also, which are nuclear capable intercontinental ballistic missiles. These missiles alone ensured that India can hit any targets in the range of 100 kilometers to 5,000 kilometers, even carrying nuclear payloads to Beijing, that is capital city of China, some 6,000, 5,000 or 4,000 kilometers away from wherever we launch on Indian land or through sea platforms. Now you have Trishul, which is a short range low level surface to air missile. You have Nag that we are discussing now, and we have also developed Akash, which is a medium range surface to air missile. Remember, most of these missiles have multiple platform launch capabilities, meaning they can be launched from air, they can be launched from sea, they can be launched from land. In some cases, they can also be launched from underwater platforms like submarines. Now that is the integrated guided missile development program. Now let us come back to the NAG itself. How does NAG function? NAG is an self-guided. It guides itself to the target after the infantry soldier or any other platform launches it. Right? It has an imaging infrared seeker that is used to lock on to target before the launch. Then it uses that data to guide itself to the target and take it out. Now there are two modes in NAG, that is the top attack mode and the direct attack mode. Top attack mode is used when the target is far away. So what happens in that mode is when the missile gets launched out of its canister, it attains the highest altitude that it can attain and then it drops using gravity towards the target. In the direct attack mode, it is probably used in cases where the distance between the launcher and the enemy tank is very near. Then it skims the surface and directly strikes the target in the lower altitude. Now the idea was to develop its capability so that it can defeat our enemy's main battle tanks, which are generally equipped with composite and reactive armor. So generally armor piercing rounds or anything, they don't tend to do damage to these kinds of composite and reactive armor vehicles or tanks. That is why India had to develop anti-tank missiles. These missiles essentially can penetrate armor and they can destroy those main battle tanks, giving an upper hand in battlefield to Indian armored forces. So that was the idea that we developed it. Now in this article they are talking about the anti-tank guided missile that was launched using the helicopter as its platform. So for the land-based version NAG is called NAG, but for the helicopter-based version, meaning the NAG anti-tank missile that would be launched using a helicopter, it would be called as Helena. This is again being indigenously developed, and as of now it has completed all trails and processes for issuing of acceptance of necessity. You don't need all the details of acceptance of necessity. What you need to know is when a branch of Indian Armed Forces issues acceptance of necessity, it means that they have given it the green signal to initiate a tender process for purchasal. So that is all you need to know about AON. Now coming to the Helena, this is the army version, and you have Dhruvastra, which is again the Indian Air Force version. Both are helicopter launched version. These are third generation anti-tank guided missiles, again the NAG missile. The one that is being used by army is called Helena. The one that is being used by Indian Air Force is called Dhruvastra. Both are helicopter launched versions. As I said, it has all weather capabilities. So you have two helicopters that are being equipped with this, that is the light combat helicopter LCH and the advanced light helicopter. The one that you are seeing here right now is the advanced light helicopter. It is like the Apache attack helicopters of Boeing, similar functionality but entirely developed by Hindustan Aeronautical Limited. In this picture you are seeing the same thing, but this is advanced light helicopter, again developed by Hindustan Aeronautical Limited. So this is Helena, this is the NAG missile. These are all that you need to understand about these ATMGs, anti-tank guided missiles. Thank you, stay safe, namaste.
Borthakur IAS Academy প্রস্তুতি আৰু অধ্যয়নৰ নিৰ্ভৰযোগ্য ঠিকনা
Borthakur IAS Academy